What's going on, everybody? My name's Andy and welcome to the channel. So today we're going to be discussing, should you put fender flares on your truck? Now, I ran the Bushwhacker fender flares, the pocket style, on my truck for probably a year and a half, 2 years, give or take. I don't know exactly how long it was, but it was probably a little longer than a year and a half, a little less than 2 years. Now, I did a video at 6 months a while back, I think it was, and took those flares off and showed what kind of scratches you got. And then probably last week, I guess it was a week or so ago, I did a video about actually taking the flares off, detailing the truck. I waxed it and I cleaned up the scratches. Now, cleaning up those scratches took me probably 4 hours, and I could not get them all out just by doing it by hand. Now, if I would have had an orbital buffer or something like that, I could have probably got the rest of those out, but I did not have one of those. And I may actually still take the truck and let some professional get what little bits left out. I can't imagine they'd charge me a whole lot to get those out because I got most of it. But right now, they're not too bad noticeable. But that is what sparked this debate. Should you put fender flares on your truck? And this is probably of any brand. I chose Bushwhacker because they're supposed to be like a no rub, top of the line. Those things were like $1,000 painted to match my truck. And that's a lot of money for me to take them off and then have scratches all over them. Now, I kind of knew, I was smart enough to know that if I put something like that on my truck, that it's probably going to scratch it. You know, I didn't have any, beliefs that some magical thing was going to happen, that dirt wasn't going to get in between that rubber seal and not scratch this truck. So when I took them off, I seen how bad it was. Most of them even had 2 lines. I guess a top one and a bottom one had been rubbing, and it had 2 lines, and it was even harder to get some of those out. Now, if you want to put fender flares on your truck, they do look good. That's the first thing. They do look good. I do like the look of it now where I have some extra tires sticking out, but with that does come rock chips. So you have to decide, rock chips are pretty bad. So if you put those tires sticking out, you're going to get chips, and some of those are pretty good size. I may try to insert some of those if I can remember. Half the time I forget to take pictures like that, but if I can remember, I've got a pretty good size one on the other side, and I'll try to take a picture of that. But you will get some pretty good rock chips if you have, an inch and a half or tire or so sticking out beside your fender here. It's going to catch those gravel and throw them up. It really depends on what tires you run. Now, I'm running Nitto Terra Grappler G2s, and they do catch gravel somewhat. I'm sure there's tires that catch gravel worse. There's probably tires that don't catch it as bad. But I do get some rock chips when I don't have my fender flares on. Now, I do want to say, even with the fender flare on, that I would still get a rock chip every once in a while, but it was very minimal than it is without them. I will say that there's nowhere near as many rock chips with the fender flares on as without the fender flares on. So there's a pro to getting the fender flares. They do look good, and they do keep down the rock chips, and the rock chips is the main reason that I bought them. Now, I didn't understand how bad the scratches would be. Now, I want to say this. People say I'm going to put these on and never take them off. My fear of that is I'm never going to take them off, and it's going to sit there and rub and rub and rub and rub until finally it gets through the paint. Now, mine had just scratched the clear coat over like a year and a half or so, and like I said, I could get most of that out. But eventually, if they're on there for 4 or 5 years, it's probably going to go through that clear coat, go through that paint, and then you're going to have a rust issue. So if you're going to run fender flares, I'm a firm believer that you should at least take them off and clean that up every once in a while. Now, I do also want to say in this video that I did find a product online, and if I decide to put them back on, I will use this product. I may try to link it in this video for you people that may want to put flares on your truck. It's a tape. Now, what you do is you have to actually install the flares twice. You actually put the flares on, screw them down where they would actually be on the truck, and then you take a little piece of outline tape and go around the outside of the flare. Then you take your flare back off, and you can see the outline of where your flare is going to be, and then it gives you a clear piece of tape that goes right underneath that piece that you just put on there, and that way the clear piece of tape should be in between your flare and the paint. Now, if I decide to put that back on, or my flare's back on, I will use that tape next time to try to minimize any kind of damage. But in the back of my mind, if it scratches this paint, how long will it take for that tape to wear through, and then you're just rubbing on the paint again. And also a second thing, how hard is it to get that tape off? Now I've got a clear bra on the front of my truck, and it did scratch that clear bra, and I cannot get that out. I don't know if a professional knows how to get that out of that or not, and I don't know how hard it is to get that off or how expensive it is to put it back on. I've heard it's pretty expensive. So that's another reason that that I didn't really worry about that section. But how hard is it to get that tape back off? How much residue is it going to leave? Now you can always get tape off your truck, but how much residue is it going to leave? How much effort is it going to take to get that residue off? Yes, I do think that will help protect your truck, and yes, if I decide to put them back on, I will use that. But there are some negatives of that as well. Like I said, how often are you going to have to replace that tape? Because I do believe eventually it will wear through that tape. All tape will wear out. I'm sure it's not some super thick tape. I'm sure it's durable, but I'm sure it's not super thick, and dirt's just going to keep on like a file, like a piece of sandpaper is what it's going to act like, and it's eventually going to wear through that tape just like it does your paint. So how long will that take? You're still going to have to check that periodically, in my opinion, to make sure it's still not wore through that tape. Then you're going to have to worry about taking all that back off and putting it back on again. Now, for me, as of right now, after working all those scratches out, I'm not going to be putting my fender flares back on anytime soon, because I don't want to have to redo all that again. And like I said, it just freaks me out to think that eventually it will wear through that paint, and then I'll have rust issues on the truck. And to me, that's not worth it. So more than likely, I'm going to give it a month or so to kind of make sure that's what I want to do. But more than likely, I will probably be selling my flares and recouping what little bit of the $1,000 I've got in it. Realistically, I really don't think I'll probably get more than $400 out of all four of them, and they were $1,000 new, so that's a horrible investment. But you know, considering that how much damage was done to the paint of my truck, I just think I'm done with the flares for right now. But I did want you guys to know that there is a tape that you can put on there that supposedly helps with that. I am going to do some more research on that tape. I do like how the flares look on the truck. It makes it look a little wider, a little beefier. I like how the tires stick out, but for what you're getting and how it helps the rock chips, I think I like the flares for the rock chips, but I don't like it for the scratches on the paint. So once I do a little more research on that tape and find out exactly how good it is, if I decide to put the flares back on after that, I'll let you guys know. I'll do a video of installing that tape and everything like that. And if I decide to sell the flares, I'll also let you guys know I decided to sell them and didn't even put them back on the truck. But as of right now, I think that's my plan. So for you, can I suggest putting flares on your truck? I would not suggest it myself, just simply because of the damage the flare actually does over the rock chips. I think if you're going to have to take one or the other, the rock chips are at the bottom of the truck. You can take some kind of little touch-up paint and touch that up, and it'll never be noticed because the way the bottom of the truck goes back, you know, you're really not going to notice that. But that scratch on the side of my fender or the bedside is very, very noticeable when you take those off. So I hope this helped you guys decide, you know, the pros and cons. The pros, like I said, stops rock chips, looks a little meaner. Cons, huge scratches, possible rust. Rust issues for me is a no-go, and I'm just not willing to risk that. Appreciate you guys watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time.